In the early morning of the coastal town of Fairhaven, a thick fog cloaked the main road like a shroud hiding sins. The distant barking of dogs echoed, sharp and chilling, slicing through the damp air, causing street vendors to pause and housewives to drop their bags of coffee in surprise. Out of the mist, 6 towering silhouettes emerged, their synchronized steps like a regiment trained for the apocalypse. They were 6 German shepherds, muscular, sleek black coats gleaming, eyes glinting like blades. No leashes, no collars, only a primal strength that sent shivers down spines. The crowd began to gather, whispering and pointing. Who would be foolish enough to let these beasts loose on the streets? Then abruptly a collective gasp escaped the crowd. From the midst of the dogs, a tiny figure stepped forward, not the grizzled ex-soldier or the muscular dog trainer they imagined. It was a little girl no older than 6, so small she seemed like a doll swallowed up by the massive black coats. Lily Harper, with tangled blonde hair and deep blue eyes, walked among the dogs like a mysterious queen. A slight wave of her tiny hand, a gentle tilt of her head, and all 6 dogs instantly sat, perfectly synchronized as if programmed. The crowd fell silent, the only sound the wind whistling through the old rooftops. "No way." Margaret Walsh, a longtime widow in Fairhaven, hissed through clenched teeth, gripping her cane tightly. "A child controlling those dogs? There's something terribly wrong here. I'd bet my life that house is hiding a terrible secret." Her voice hung in the air like a dark prophecy, and suspicious glances began to spread. Some murmured of witchcraft, others whispered about twisted experiments in the old Harper house down Elm Street. Lily wasn't always the silent, enigmatic girl she was now. Once she had been a radiant child, growing up amidst playful barks and the damp scent of dog fur. Her parents, Jack and Emily Harper, were renowned dog trainers throughout New England, known for working with the state police to train the finest canine units. Their home was always filled with laughter, pattering paws, and Lily's babbling calls to every puppy by name. But it all crumbled on a stormy October night in 2019. A truck barreled through a red light, slamming into Jack and Emily's car and stealing their lives in an instant. Lily, barely 3 years old at the time, miraculously survived but retreated deep within herself, locking away her voice in a world unreachable by others. Now she lived with her grandparents George and Clara Harper, in a weathered wooden house battered by sea winds. George, 74, battled heart disease, his steps slow and labored. Clara, 72, suffered from arthritis, her hands trembling as she stirred pots of soup. They were old, frail, living off meager pensions, but couldn't bear to part Lily from the 6 dogs. Max, Bella, Duke, Luna, Shadow and Rex, the last remnants of her shattered family. The dogs weren't just pets. They were guardians, confidants, and the only thing keeping Lily from falling into darkness. But the real mystery began on those quiet nights. Under the flicker of a dim flashlight, Lily would sneak up to the attic and pore over her parents' thick training journals. The yellowed pages meticulously detailed every command, every technique, even the unique quirks of each dog. Max adapted quickly, Bella was sensitive to noise, Duke was ever watchful. Night after night, Lily read, learned, and innovated. She developed a secret system of signals, gentle waves like whispers, faint whistles, and soft touches that the dogs obeyed instantly. When Clara's back pain kept her from walking the dogs, Lily quietly tied leashes around her waist, stepped outside, and began the journey that would soon shake Fairhaven. The first time Lily led the dogs through downtown, traffic nearly ground to a halt. Cars stopped, drivers gawked with wide eyes as the tiny girl walked amid a forest of massive, imposing dogs. Max, weighing nearly 40 kilograms, led the pack with regal poise, while Lily strode confidently, her red sneakers a vivid contrast against the sea of black fur. At first she stuck to narrow alleys and empty parks. But as her confidence grew, she strode down Main Street just as shops were opening. The crowd thickened, phones were raised to record, and gasps turned to shouts of astonishment when Lily signaled. 3 dogs veered left, 3 right, then regrouped flawlessly at the corner. "Look at that." Frank Delaney, the hardware store owner, gaped from his shop doorway, keys clattering to the ground. "Those dogs listen to her better than my kids listen to me." But not everyone was impressed. Margaret Walsh began following Lily, jotting down times and muttering about the dangers of monsters off their leashes. She hosted community concern meetings on her porch, stoking fears that Lily wasn't in school, that the Harpers had lost control. Rumors spread like wildfire, the girl's disturbed, that house is up to something sinister, it's only a matter of time before those dogs attack someone. The storm broke at a heated town council meeting in May. The room was packed, stifling with the scent of sweat and tension. Voices clashed. Michael Russo, the restaurant owner, defended Lily, praising the dogs for drawing tourists. But Diane Carter, clutching her designer purse, fiercely objected, citing her nephew's traumatic dog bite. 2 hours passed and the council upheld the leash law, but the lines were drawn. Fairhaven was divided. Some adored the dog whisperer, others saw her as a looming threat. And behind the faded wooden door of the Harper house, a darker secret than anyone could imagine was about to be uncovered, triggering a chain of events that would change the town forever. The storm of public opinion in Fairhaven didn't stop at whispers or suspicious glances. It erupted into an all-out battle when Margaret Walsh, her silver hair tightly buned like a symbol of unyielding resolve, decided to turn her fears into action. One Tuesday morning she stood in the town square, clutching a thick stack of papers high above her head, a petition signed by more than 30 residents demanding government intervention. "A child cannot control those dogs in an emergency," she shouted, her voice sharp as a knife cutting through the salty sea air. "If we don't act, blood will be spilled, maybe even our own." The crowd murmured, some nodding in agreement, others frowning in disapproval. But the seed of fear had been planted and it quickly took root. The Harper house, already a focal point of gossip, was now under the scrutinizing gaze of the authorities. A team of experts was summoned, like phantoms emerging from the morning mist, to pry open the life of Lily and her 6 dogs. First came Melissa Carter, a young child welfare officer with a steely gaze and a voice as cold as metal. Then came Dr. Alan Brooks, a trauma psychologist always carrying a thick notebook and a probing stare. Finally, Samantha Reed, an animal behaviorist with heavy boots and a wary attitude, as if bracing herself to face a pack of wild wolves. They arrived with cameras, questionnaires, and devices that looked like instruments from a secret scientific experiment. The Harpers' old wooden house became the stage for a tense drama, where every move Lily made was recorded, analyzed, and judged. Lily, her deep blue eyes now shadowed by pressure, remained silent before the strangers. She moved among her dogs like a tiny ghost, her small hands making subtle gestures that only Max, Bella, Duke, Luna, Shadow, and Rex could understand. Dr. Brooks, perched uncomfortably in a worn-out armchair in the living room, scribbled furiously, eyebrows knitting every time Lily avoided his gaze to communicate with the dogs. "Her focus on the animals is remarkable," he muttered to Melissa, skepticism lacing his tone. "But is it genius or a sign of a deeply damaged soul?" Melissa nodded, fingers tapping rapidly on her tablet. "We need to determine if this relationship is healthy or just an avoidance mechanism to evade human connection." Meanwhile, George Harper, breath labored and face flushed from a lingering heart condition, struggled to explain to the experts. "Lily hasn't spoken to us since the accident," he said, his voice trembling like a thread on the verge of snapping. "But with the dogs she comes alive. They're all she has left of my son and daughter-in-law." Clara Harper, leaning on her cane, eyes clouded with age, added, "We can't take them from her. How can we steal away the last bit of light in her life?" But their pleas seemed to fall on deaf ears. The investigators wanted evidence, not emotions. Then an unexpected incident shook all assumptions. On the 3rd day of the investigation, as pale sunlight streamed through cobwebbed windows, George suddenly collapsed in the kitchen. The clatter of broken dishes echoed, followed by Clara's panicked scream. But before anyone could react, Max, the largest dog, black-furred with eyes that burned like flames, was already bounding into the kitchen. Lily, as if awoken by some supernatural sense, raced after him. By the time Dr. Brooks and Melissa reached the doorway, they were stunned by the sight. Tiny Lily, as small as a sparrow, had positioned George into the recovery position, while Max stood guard, a low growl warning anyone from approaching. The other 5 dogs formed a protective circle around George, a coordinated stance that seemed far too disciplined for untrained animals. Max knew before anyone else, Clara choked out as paramedics checked George's vital signs. "He always knows when George is about to have an episode. Sometimes even before George himself realizes." Dr. Brooks exchanged a glance with Melissa, whispering, "The ability to sense seizures or heart issues, it's rare but real." Max warned her, and Lily understood the signal. The incident changed the game. Melissa quickly contacted her superiors, requesting the expertise of Samantha Miller, a service dog trainer, to evaluate Max. After a day of observation, Samantha confirmed, "This is not just a pet. Max is functioning as a natural medical alert dog. With formal training, he could be legally recognized." For the first time, the tide of public opinion began to shift. Margaret Walsh's accusations no longer seemed so damning. Questions were raised, but now they were laced with curiosity instead of fear. Who was Lily Harper? An extraordinary child or something more mysterious? Fairhaven was divided. Some still viewed her with suspicion, while others were captivated by the image of the girl who whispered to dogs. But behind the faded wooden door of the Harper house, a darker secret was stirring, one that would soon tear the town apart and change its fate forever. News of Max's unique abilities spread quickly through Fairhaven's rumor mill. The Cape Cod Service Dog Association offered to train Max for free. Some who had once sided with Margaret began to waver, wondering if separating Lily from her pack was truly the right decision. But Margaret Walsh was unwavering. "One useful dog doesn't change the fact that the other 5 are a danger," she declared at the next Concerned Citizens meeting, jabbing a finger at a stack of photos showing German Shepherd attacks she had printed from the internet. "We can't risk the lives of other children just because of a touching story." The investigation dragged on for a week, with experts coming and going from the Harper house like an endless circus. Lily withdrew further, speaking only to the dogs or nodding to her grandparents. The pressure weighed heavily on the small family. George was hospitalized one night from stress, and Clara wept at the thought of losing either Lily or the dogs. But everything truly came to a head when the case went to court. The trial took place in Barnstable County Courthouse, a grim old building with cold stone walls and an atmosphere heavy as a predetermined sentence. Judge Sandra Mitchell, known for her sternness and eagle-sharp eyes, sat high on the bench, looking down at the packed courtroom. The plaintiff was Margaret Walsh, with a lawyer from Boston, a tall, gaunt woman in a black suit, eyes sharp enough to pierce through stone. The defendant was the Harper family, represented by James Sullivan, a local attorney volunteering his services after hearing their story. Lily sat between her grandparents, small hands clasped tightly, eyes downcast, while the 6 dogs remained at home under the supervision of a veterinary technician. Melissa Carter began with a lengthy report, presenting the experts' evaluations with clinical detachment. Dr. Brooks spoke of Lily's psychological trauma and potential mild autism, stressing that the dogs might be her only escape. Samantha Reed praised Lily's remarkable control over the pack but warned of the dangers if the girl remained unsupervised. The air in the courtroom was tense, every word like a blade cutting into the Harper family's fragile hopes. Then came Dr. Nathan Evans, a young veterinarian newly assigned to the investigation. Tall, bespectacled, and with a passion that made his voice tremble, he took the witness stand. He recounted days of observing Lily, learning her hand signals, and eventually getting Luna, the smallest dog, to respond to him. "Lily isn't just copying techniques from her parents," he said, excitement quivering in his tone. "She's innovating, adapting them in her own way. I've never seen anything like it in my career. These dogs aren't just trained, they're loyal to Lily to the point of dying for her." He concluded that breaking this bond would cause severe harm, both psychologically and developmentally, to Lily. Margaret Walsh stood to counter, her voice ringing out like an accusation. "I don't doubt this family's love," she said, brandishing the bloody bite mark photos. "But we cannot let emotions cloud judgment. 6 dangerous animals, a damaged child who can't speak. This is a disaster waiting to happen." The crowd murmured, tension thickening as the room divided. The climax came when Judge Mitchell, after 4 hours of heated debate, asked Lily to speak for herself. The courtroom fell silent, all eyes fixed on the small girl who had not spoken a word in public since the accident. Clara whispered softly to Lily, but she only shook her head, eyes still lowered. The judge sighed and was about to continue when the courtroom doors burst open. Max, somehow escaping supervision, charged down the aisle, his sleek black coat gleaming under the lights. Gasps erupted, and a security guard reached for his gun, but Dr. Evans shouted, "Don't. He's not attacking." Max ran straight to Lily, pressing his head into her lap before turning to George, who had gone pale, breaths shallow and irregular. "Mr. Harper, are you all right?" Dr. Evans asked urgently. Max whined and nudged George's knee as if warning him of something. Judge Mitchell swiftly called for medical assistance, and the trial was paused. When the paramedics confirmed George was experiencing heart arrhythmia, Max stood sentinel, eyes never leaving his master, like a loyal soldier on watch. "This dog just saved his life," a paramedic muttered, strapping George onto a gurney. "If it hadn't been caught in time, he could have had a major heart attack." During the recess, Judge Mitchell brought Lily and Dr. Evans into a private chamber. There, for the first time, Lily wrote down her thoughts on a piece of paper. "Don't take my dogs away. They keep the nightmares away." She revealed she had been able to read and write from an early age thanks to her parents, but words got stuck after witnessing the accident. When the trial resumed with Max at her side, Lily suddenly stood, her voice soft but clear. "I was in the car when Mom and Dad crashed. Max pulled me out before the fire." The courtroom fell silent. Clara wept, realizing her granddaughter had been at the scene. For the first time, Margaret Walsh bowed her head, withdrawing her petition and admitting her mistake. Judge Mitchell made her ruling. Lily would keep her dogs, but under 6 months of professional supervision, led by Dr. Evans. "This is the path to her healing," the judge declared, her tone as final as a gavel strike. But behind that decision, a darker secret about the accident was about to surface. One that would tear open old wounds and reveal a horrifying truth that would change everything. The trial had ended, but the storm in Fairhaven had not yet subsided. The next morning, sunlight pierced through the thick fog, illuminating the wooden porch of the Harper family's house, where Lily sat motionless like a small statue. 5 German shepherds, Bella, Duke, Luna, Shadow, and Rex, circled her, their bright eyes filled with concern, but the familiar presence of Max was missing. The heroic dog who had saved Lily from the burning car and George from a heart attack was now locked in a cold metal cage at the animal control facility. An unexpected incident had turned everything upside down. It happened on a warm June afternoon when Dr. Nathan Evans suggested moving Lily's therapy session to the harbor park. "A change of scenery would be good for both Lily and the dogs," he told Grandma Clara, a gentle smile hiding behind the glasses sliding down his nose. They arrived at the public garden, where wildflowers swayed in the sea breeze, and the distant waves provided a soothing soundtrack. Lily, in her worn-out red shoes, guided the dogs through familiar exercises, responding to Dr. Evans's questions with nods or simple words like yes or no. Onlookers paused to watch, murmuring admiration, but no one dared come close. The 6 German shepherds stood as a living, breathing barricade. Then, like a bolt of lightning from a clear sky, Margaret Walsh appeared on the gravel path, her tall, gaunt figure striking against the sunset glow. She clutched a shopping bag tightly, her red-rimmed eyes peeking out from behind thick glasses, staring intently at Lily with an unreadable expression. "Lily," she called, her voice trembling as she stepped forward but kept a cautious distance. Lily gripped Max's fur tighter but nodded, letting Max stand protectively between her and the woman who had once been her greatest enemy. Margaret took a deep breath as if gathering every ounce of courage. "I owe you an apology," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was protecting you by trying to take your dogs away, but I was wrong. And there's more, something I've kept secret out of shame." Dr. Evans tensed, ready to intervene, but Margaret raised a hand to stop him. "I was there," she said, her voice breaking. "The night your parents died, it was my car that ran the red light." Time seemed to stop. Lily stood frozen, her blue eyes wide, her breathing shallow. The dogs sensed the shift, a low growl rumbling through the pack, hackles rising as they readied to defend. "It was raining hard," Margaret continued, tears streaming down her lined face. "I was arguing with my husband on the phone, distracted. I didn't see the light change. By the time I saw your parents' car, it was too late. The police called it an accident due to the storm, no charges. But I always knew it was my fault." Dr. Evans stepped closer to Lily, but she unexpectedly raised a hand to stop him, her gaze still locked on Margaret. "You killed my mom and dad," Lily said, her voice small but sharp as a knife. Margaret nodded, tears splashing onto the gravel path. "Yes. I don't expect your forgiveness. But seeing you with the dogs every day passing by my house, I panicked. I thought they recognized my scent from the accident. I convinced myself taking them away was right, but I was just running from my guilt." The tension snapped with a loud crash. Someone on a bike had suddenly rounded the corner, startling a flock of pigeons into frantic flight. The flapping wings and startled shouts made Lily jump, gripping Max's fur tightly. In a heartbeat, Max surged forward, not attacking but positioning himself between Lily and Margaret, barking a single warning. Margaret, panicking, stumbled back and fell hard onto the gravel path. "Ah!" she cried out, clutching her left arm, her face ashen with pain. Dr. Evans knelt beside her. "Are you all right, Mrs. Walsh?" Margaret panted, "My arm, it might be broken. But the dog didn't bite me. He was just protecting the girl. I just lost my balance." However, a passing tourist had already dialed 911 shouting, "Dog attack." Within minutes, police and paramedics arrived. Officer Connolly, who had escorted Lily during those first troubling days, approached with a regretful expression. "I have to take Max, Lily," he said gently. "It's protocol when someone's injured, even if it wasn't a bite." Lily screamed, her voice shattering after days of silence. "No. Don't take Max. He was protecting me." She clung to Max, tears streaming down her face, but Connolly had no choice. He clipped on the leash, leading the dog away as the other 5 whined mournfully. Margaret, lying on the stretcher, shouted, "It wasn't the dog's fault. Put it in the report." But rules were rules, and Max was taken away, leaving Lily sobbing on the porch. The next day, Fairhaven stirred awake. Dr. Evans stayed at the animal control facility all night, ensuring Max was well cared for, but Lily wouldn't eat, wouldn't speak, just stared into the distance. Grandpa George, ignoring the doctor's warnings, made frantic calls, his voice raw with fury. Then Michael Russo, the restaurant owner who had supported Lily, showed up with a USB drive. "I have something," he said urgently. The restaurant's security camera caught something at the park. The grainy footage was clear enough. 6 weeks before the trial, at 5:47 a.m., Lily and Max were near the decorative pond. Lily bent down to pick up a toy boat stuck in the water but slipped, falling into the shallow pond, deep enough that a small child couldn't climb out. Max instantly dove in, using his body to lift Lily and push her to safety. Lily coughed, clung to Max, then quietly went home, hiding the incident. "She told me she fell in a puddle," Clara whispered, hands trembling. "If not for Max." News of the video spread like wildfire, igniting a storm of outrage. Crowds gathered outside the animal control facility, waving signs that read "Free Max," and "A hero doesn't belong in a cage." But the biggest shock came when Margaret Walsh, her left arm in a cast, arrived at the Harper house. She stepped onto the porch, faced Lily, and knelt despite her pain. "I just heard about the pond," she said, voice choked. "Max saved you. But I need to confess something worse. The night of the accident, I wasn't just distracted. I had 2 glasses of wine beforehand. Not enough for a DUI, but enough that I shouldn't have been driving in the rain. The police covered it up because of my status, but I can't live with the lie anymore." She pulled out an envelope. "I went to the station, gave a full confession. I've resigned from all my positions, and this is a letter taking full responsibility for what happened yesterday, confirming Max's innocence. I've sent it to the court and animal control." Lily stared, her icy blue eyes cold. "Why now?" Margaret bowed her head. "Because Max is braver than I am. He would die to protect you, and I've spent 2 years running away." Just then Connolly's police car pulled up. Max jumped out, racing straight into Lily's arms as she sobbed tears of joy. "Max is free and officially recognized as a service dog." Connolly laughed heartily. Margaret stood watching, tears streaming down her face, not from pain, but from a faint glimmer of hope amidst the ruins of her own making. Summer passed, and Max, along with the entire pack, was officially recognized as service dogs by court order. Margaret established a support fund for Lily, which the Harpers initially refused but eventually accepted for the girl's future. Dr. Evans launched the Pause for Healing program, with Lily as the young assistant, helping traumatized children connect through therapy dogs. By winter, during a sudden blizzard, Margaret unexpectedly helped the Harper family reach a warming center, opening a fragile door to forgiveness. A year after the trial, Fairhaven held Dog Companionship Day, where Lily stood beside a bronze plaque engraved with Max's name, speaking clearly, "My parents used to say dogs and people are meant to help each other. I think they'd be happy to see everyone being helped." Lily Harper's story teaches us a profound lesson. The truth, no matter how painful, is the only path to healing. Margaret hid her guilt for 2 years, but it was only when she faced it that both she and Lily found light. In life, we often run from our mistakes, fearing the consequences, but it's the courage to acknowledge and make amends that truly helps us overcome darkness, rebuilding trust with ourselves and others. Just like Lily and her dogs, sometimes our greatest strength comes from the silent companions who walk beside us. If you found this story moving, please like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more inspiring stories like Lily and Max's. Every interaction motivates us to bring you more incredible journeys. See you in the next video.